is, I guess.
There, that's
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get rolling here. As you look around, you notice our numbers are much reduced from the past. Just like in a college classroom, after you guys get the syllabus, you know when your tests are, you can have to show up. That's kind of typical college. So, in any event, we'll cover religions today. That'll be our focus, and we'll have a chance to look at language with whatever time we have remaining. And again, the other two subjects will be in the PowerPoint. They're also in a couple of your handouts, and you guys can look at those at your leisure. Maybe you can pull them back in on Wednesday if you guys have questions, and we'll do our review session Wednesday morning. So, in any event, same rules apply. If you guys need to go for something or go to the washroom or whatever, go ahead and take off. And we'll just be here until 4:20-ish with a 1-minute break when the thing turns off. Just for modifiers. Isn't that a good slide? Like that slide? It took me all day to come up with it. You're welcome. All right, here we go. I guess that isn't it. A little Central America. Okay. Our institution of religion. By far, when we've done this unit, we've done one of the best in our culture units, but if we were to break down culture a little bit further, religion and language tends to be the ones that we struggle with the most, which is why it's going to be our focus. When we talk about religion, we're talking about those kind of united system of beliefs that bring people together in order to have some sort of common way of maybe practicing or sharing those beliefs in consideration of all things that are considered sacred. And that term sacred will come out when we talk about anything that has religious connotation to it. So as it relates to religion, we'll use the word sacred. So anything that, and I use this, I know this term in class, the idea of what transcends immediate existence. Why are we here? Who is God? Is there a God? What happens to us when we're done being here? Who am I supposed to be? Those sorts of questions are reasons why the institution of religion has come together. And it's something that is attempted to be answered by kind of these institutions as well as the sort of belief structures in general. Anytime we're referring to something, and I think it's like the key word from here that you want to know is anytime you're referring to something that's not religious based, usually the word secular will be the word that you see. You could also talk about it as the profane, and thus kind of is the idea of profanity, which I don't need you to practice right now, even if you're doing it in your head. But profane are all things that are not religious based. Okay, meaning of life, helps provide functioning for people, also helps to pass along the norms of society. Okay, so it helps us to teach us, just like school does, just like your parents do, so too does the institution of religion. Now, this map is super important. Okay? Understanding where the majority of practicing individuals are is going to be important for almost all things related to a multiple choice question, and in some cases even to a free response. I know the Christianity one, for instance, that focused on religions X, Y, and Z, focused on the United States. Something you got to know. Yeah? I have no idea, but I will look when the projector goes out, and I'll see if I can find it for you. Otherwise, I'll put this in the handout folder. Oh, well, this will be in the handout folder, so at the very least you can acquire it from there. You'll notice when we look at it, okay, our region's right through here. Okay, so Northern Africa, Middle East, into kind of some of the old southern Soviet states. We're going to be talking about Islam. And again, separate between Sunni and Shiite. Sunni is by far the largest percentage. We'll talk about that more. Shiite is the smaller of the two. As we move to our North and South America, they're going to be Christian-based religions. And again, that should make sense through colonialism, right? As the Europeans migrated, and part of the idea was to help to convert people through missionary work, right? Thus we see the impact of Christianity there. And then in our India, through our Southeast Asia, through China, and into Japan, we'll notice our unique or non-Western faiths. Is that in there?
It's kind of the same, but not exactly.
What page is it?
182 and 183.
Okay, 182 and 183 in your book will give you a simplified version of this, right? Would you agree with that?
It's kind of like not exact locations, I guess.
Okay. All right, so that's another spot that you can go, and that would probably be enough for us. But again, that 1 year they surprised us with that, the breakdown of religions in the United States, and I wasn't expecting kind of a religion question at that scale. It definitely threw us off. So, in any event, this map is something you should just kind of burn into your head. In addition to the climate maps, in addition to the agriculture maps, in addition, I mean, there's a lot of maps you got to kind of overlay, but there you go. All right. Okay, in terms of kind of our distribution, Christianity is our largest religion in terms of numbers. Islam is second. And Islam is our most rapidly growing of the faiths. Birth rates in countries that are predominantly Muslim is much higher than in our Christian countries. So again, something to kind of keep in mind, that while Christianity outpaces them now, the projections in the future, that won't be the case. Followed up by Hinduism, which is what happens when you have 1 billion people in your country, and then it kind of siphons down from there. Okay, so in terms of classifications, a couple of these would be super easy for you. Monotheistic, one God. Polytheistic, many gods, that's the easy stuff. If you are a theist, you believe that there is a God. Sometimes you'll hear the nickname of there, the knowers. We know that there's something else out there. If you're an atheist, that means you believe in no God. And if you are agnostic, you're acknowledging that you don't really know, or that you can't really define a doctrine, a dogma, a methodology in terms of whatever faith you might aspire to or believe in. Okay. They're the not knowers. They're not so sure. They're the indifferents. They're like teenagers. Imagine if those 5 people got into a room, huh? That should be a good sort of joke too. So in walks the bar. There's this monotheist, there's this theist, and there's this agnostic. The atheist is the bartender. All right, so there's a joke somewhere. Someone work it out. Give you extra credit. I like it. Okay. All right. The roots of religion. The roots of religion are animism, and that's by the term you have to know. I don't think you need to write down everything else that's on there. But animism, or they're an aminist, or shamanism, or a shamanist. Basically, they believe in the animation of those things that are otherwise lack animation. So basically, that everything has a spirit. We find the roots of shamanism still exist in the world today, predominantly in Africa. Here's your connection with kind of historical context. Animists tend to be hunter-gatherer societies, so that's where they start off historically. And they're trying to explain kind of the methods of food production, and where would the animals go, and do the animals have spirits, and how do we sacrifice them. That's why sacrifice comes up a lot in animism as well. Something I think worth considering, that this comes from predominantly nomadic societies as they wandered in search of food. At the end of the day, you could justify your catch, or justify your lack of a catch, on the gods and spirits. We also know that shamanists, while they make up 1 out of 10 people in Africa, that it's also becoming a more and more kind of endangered group, as we've had lots of missionary work in the region, for Christianity, but also Islam as well. Okay, universalizing versus ethnic. Okay. The idea, and here's the thing geographically, the part you probably want to underline for yourself, is just your word universal. We know that universal is kind of this global idea, and that's a universalizing faith. So the idea is kind of massive connections with people. They believe in a prophet or a founder. There's a message that basically can be delivered across many different types of cultures. Christianity and Islam, in some cases, while the stories are specific, the morals, the teachings, the reference points to history are much more general. And so that appeals to a larger number of people. We'll also find that the distribution That's a good word geographically, right? The distribution is also going to be more extensive in our universalizing faiths. We have holidays that are based upon the founder's life, and there's some of our common examples of Christianity and Islam, and Buddhism as well. Buddhism is kind of the way of life that doesn't have a lot of connections necessarily with being, for instance, in China. You have to be in China in order to be Buddhist. Again, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path is a larger sort of kind of outlook. So our ethnic faiths are going to be kind of the opposite of everything that you just saw. Okay. Now, we know that ethnicity refers to what? Okay, so if we're talking about the ethnic background of someone, we're talking about kind of their homeland. There's a strong connection to where you come from. Same thing happens here in terms of religion. Okay, so the place that it starts is super important for the faith, and in many cases, the faith can't be taken out of the culture that it comes from. All right, so again, something just to keep in mind, even if you forget all these other details. So again, particular place is important. They may not know where it starts from. Countries of origin are important. They tend to be highly clustered then. Okay, as opposed to being dispersed, like our universalizing faiths, they tend to be highly clustered in areas. Holidays that are based upon local climates, local customs, and oftentimes, this is, I think, fascinating, is local agriculture. Local agriculture plays a large role in a lot of these faiths in terms of when they celebrate and when they don't. You can't be out celebrating if you got to go and take the food out of the ground. And again, they structure the holidays accordingly. So, Judaism, Shintoism, Hinduism, none of them are actively seeking converts. It's why when someone knocks on the door to your house, who does that tend to be? Who's kind of known for helping to convert people? The repo man. How about the Jehovah's Witnesses? Okay, there's an active push for conversion. Okay, we're talking about kind of this Christian extension, all right, that doesn't exist in our ethnic faiths. Okay, and again, just a really good separation between the two. What an interesting free response question, or part of one that they could ask you. I mean, again, I know what they're going to ask, but again, comparing and contrasting universalized versus ethnic faiths, and provide examples historically and the differences and so on and so forth. And again, it's like an easy one, I think, to write about. So here are some other kind of key concepts that come out. There's been a large argument that the world has become more secularized. When we talk about secularization, we're talking about the process of leading them against any sort of allegiance to a church. And that, by the way, is moving from not just Catholicism to a more broad Christianity, for instance, but that's kind of the removal of church as an important part of the process. In many cases, church, temple, mosque, whatever the religious institution happens to be, in many cases that is a connection of traditions that go, one after another, that pulls everyone together. Secularization is a move away from that. It's not saying, by the way, that God doesn't exist. It's just kind of a move away from the formal institution of church. The most extreme form, atheists. Okay, and I don't think you need to write down anything else that's on there. And what we find is that in our more developed countries, especially in Western Europe and in the United States, that secularization tends to be more prevalent. Now, why that's the case, it's anyone's guess. There's lots of theories, and if we were in a different class, it would be a really interesting debate. Why is it that those people that are the richest, those people that have everything, those people that have lived maybe a better life than most, also don't believe in God? Or don't believe in a formal church? Okay. It's also common in the former Soviet Union and China, but for different reasons. What do those two areas have in common? Communism, yeah. And one of the things that communism does is it tries to destroy the institution of religion. So as opposed to playing allegiance to a God and doing things for God, who should you do them for? The government. Yeah, the government. And again, I tell you that just so you guys can make the connections of, well, I know what communism is, and that might make sense as to why they're not communism, because they got to work for the government, not for God. So again, another way to work through your questions. The extreme form we talk about in terms of kind of religious fanatics, okay, is fundamentalism. We know that fundamentalism has been kind of more and more